are looking for careers in child development, and I'll tell you why. I actually wish I would have made a different decision in my life a long time ago. But I have a strong affinity for West Los Angeles College because it just happens to connect with different transitional periods in my life. So I went to Lusinger High School over in Lawndale, California. I was told I was a very smart student, but I was very ill prepared for college. So I took the late plan, right? So I roamed around for a while. I attended El Camino College, keyword attended. And then later found myself working in a grocery store, making pretty decent money at that time. It was benefits. You actually had like a part-time job with benefits. Not today, those things actually happen. And then there was a layoff. So then I'm like, that was a reality check. So you know what? I think I'm gonna take this college thing seriously and I'm gonna go back to college. And then that was my first introduction to West Los Angeles College. So I was actually a student at West Los Angeles College before transferring to Cal State Northridge, where I earned my undergraduate degree in urban studies with a minor in economics. From there, moved on to UCLA. West LA College made another part of that transition. So prior to that transition to UCLA grad school, I brushed up on a few subject matter, did that here at West Los Angeles College. After that, it's been, let's just say more than a decade in city government, in redevelopment, affordable housing, really supporting cities being able to have healthier communities through such activities as ensuring healthy neighborhoods and through affordable housing. The other connection to West Los Angeles College was that after many years went by, I was expecting my first child. Looking back in my past, I love my mom, she's great. But we all have areas where we can, have some sense of improvement. So recognizing that I didn't want to just rely on past practices and knowledge, I actually wanted to have an understanding of how children develop. And it completely blew my mind. So at that time, and like I said, this was more for me to prepare myself as a father with my new coming young daughter who's now 9 years old. At that time, I felt like I wanted to make this transition to being able to support the needs of children, but really wasn't sure how. And so I kept on going on through, it's kind of in the back of my mind. And then there was a moment in time, I don't know if any of you remember this, but back in 2009 or so, we had kind of the Great Recession. And during that particular time, city governments were really hit hard. Ironically, I worked for the city of West Hollywood that actually did very well through that. But the redevelopment in California as we knew it disappeared. So at that point, I was forced to make a decision what my future would be like. So I could have continued, but in the path of affordable housing, but I actually looked at that as an opportunity to make a transition. So I actually took off a year because I saved up a lot of money and actually took off a year. When you do that, I'll tell anybody, if you say a year, make it a year and a half. Just to go. Long story short, during that transitional period, I was introduced to Playworks. And that led me on a different path, which led me here today. So all that just to share that I'm really humbled to be here at West Los Angeles College because it has impacted my life in many ways. With me today, I have Monique Sanders. She's a site coordinator.
Sutton.
That's right.
I just got married.
She just got married. Yes. Yeah, we can go and introduce yourself.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
So I'll do a quick introduction. Hello.
Hello.
All right. So I actually like Roderick. I went to school right after college. I thought, okay, that's what I'm supposed to do, but I had no idea what I really wanted to do. So this was in 1998 when I went into school. So I left in 2002 with a degree in communication studies, radio, television, film production, and journalism. And then I became a substitute teacher. So, and I did that I enjoyed it because I was pursuing other things. It was fine, but I wasn't really invested in it, and I liked it, but I didn't love what I did. And then I was having a son, so it was kind of like time to reevaluate. There were no benefits with the job that I had, and it was a hard transition, especially being at the time I was a single parent. So it was just really, really difficult. And then I was like, you know what, let me explore other options. I was looking for employment, but I wanted to really enjoy what I was doing. And I came across Playworks and like on Craigslist of all places, right? And initially I was like, I don't know for sure. We had, when you come into Playworks, you're an AmeriCorps member. And so it was a huge reduction of pay for me at that point in my career, but not really, because the really beautiful thing is I was being a volunteer and I received pay. Also, there were so many benefits that came along with it. So it's just a win-win for me. I was able to have my son in a preschool that AmeriCorps supplemented. I was able to have all these wonderful benefits and support school community. And I grew up in Inglewood, so I was able to support a school that is the school I would have gone to if my parents didn't send me to Catholic school. I would have gone to that school. It was around the corner from where I grew up. So it was really, really beautiful. I was there for 2 years. And I've been with Playworks this is my 5th year with Playworks. My 2nd year as a site coordinator. So what that means is instead of supporting one school all the time, I have 4 schools. So I don't work just with the students. I'm more supporting the staff to create structures and systems for play on their school campuses. So it's a really, really beautiful thing, and especially when the staff is able to take what we do. We've been doing this for about 20 years, so take the structures and systems, and we do have student leadership, and I support the staff in having that on their campuses.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So at Playworks, we start off everything with a game. So I'm going to ask everyone to prepare yourself to play. Those who can stand, please rise. You join us as well. Okay. We're going to play a game, and it's called Mingle Mingle. Mingle Mingle is a great opportunity to break the ice, a way to get to know each other and to learn a little bit about each other. So in a minute, but not yet, I'm going to ask everyone to mingle around the room. So in your own special way, you can mingle, mingle, mingle is the beat. So the way that I like to mingle is I like to put a little hip in it. So mingle, mingle, mingle. So whatever works for you, just for a few seconds or so, you're gonna mingle around the room. Then I'm gonna ask you, I need a magic go and stop word. Can I get a magic go word?
Like to say the word go. Is that what you need?
What's something creative, more than go?
Vámonos.
Vámonos, hey, there you go. Spanish version, but yeah, that works. Vámonos. All right, so that's gonna be our go word. What about a stop word? So a word you hear and then you're gonna stop. Something really creative.
Cow.
Moo, cow. Okay, all right, so we're going with cow. So what is our go word?
Vámonos.
Right, and what is our stop word?
Move.
Right, so when you hear vámonos, you're going to mingle, mingle, mingle. And when you hear cow, moo, you're going to freeze. And then you're going to wait for further instructions, okay? So on a count of 3, we're going, actually not a count of 3. On our magic go word, we're going to mingle around the room. So using that magic go word of cat, y'all paying good attention, thank you. Vámonos. Mingo, mingo, mingo. Mingo, mingo, mingo.
Bingo, bingo, bingo.
Cow. So I want you to find a partner. Everyone has a partner?
Yes.
Okay, so now this partner is going to be your double high five partner for life. So the way to give a double high five is just simply, right, so the next time you see this person around campus or wherever, if you're at meeting at a grocery store, I want you to say, hey!
Hey!
Double high five. All right. So while you're together, I want you to spend probably about, like let's say about a minute, and I want you to reflect back on recess. And think about during your time in recess, what was your favorite memory of recess or a game? It could be either or. So on Vámonos, I want you to do that. Vámonos.
We missed it.
Oh, your favorite recess memory or game?
Oh, tether.
And by this time, the other person should be sharing.
My favorite.
Yeah, I love that. My voice is
I love.
when I just say it and like help people I'd rather just people. I love just work with
If you can hear my voice, match me. Match me. Match me. Okay. Can I have, say, 2 groups share out? Kind of, anyone? Any 2 groups? So I have 1, 2. Okay.
So my partner Alina mentioned that what stood out for her was swings and handball. So I did ask some follow-up questions since I'm a teacher. So swings, that's something that you can do independently, right?
Yeah.
So you can swing, and I asked her if she knew how to swing on her own, because once you're able to do that, that's a big deal versus having somebody push you.
Right.
And then for handball, I was asking her what are some of the rules that you have, but she couldn't remember, because I think that's, you know, it gets cutthroat when you have all the different rules that people put in handball, and it
Right.
kind of lets you know where you are chronologically, like what
Mhm.
kind of rules back in my day might be different than 5 years ago rules.
That's great, and you actually touched on a couple things we're going to talk about. So one's that sense of independence that children can get through play, as well as rules and consequence, making sure there's a shared understanding of the rules, and also a key point was inclusion. So just because there's older students doesn't mean that everyone, when it comes to that game, should be playing at the same level. Great. Actually, before we move on, we like to do a lot of appreciations for different groups. So can we give that group 2 snaps? Thank you.
So what we were talking about is how she loved to play tetherball, which, like, you know, they mentioned it's a set of rules, so, you know, there's certain things that you do have to follow. And then I said something about Foursquare, which also goes back to like the rules and,
Right.
you know, learning to play with everybody. And then I said double dutch. So it's, you know, there was a mixture of things that we both remember from our childhood.
Yeah, and that's a really vibrant, active recess when you have a lot of activity and different options available on the playground for students. Let's say to this group, let's say thank you for sharing.
Thank you for sharing.
All right. So, vámonos. Mingo, mingo, mingo. Mingo, mingo, mingo. Mingo, mingo, mingo. Mingo, mingo, mingo. Cow. So you want to match up? So this partner, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a special, it's going to be secret, but it's not really going to be secret, a secret handshake. So next time you see this person, you're going to give them a special secret handshake. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to create a special handshake. Can you do that? All right.
I know we feel
Okay, I'm seeing some creative handshakes out here. Would anyone like to share their handshake?
Spider Man.
The spider hands, okay. So next time we see each other.
Here we go.
All right. Anyone else like to share their special?
ready? Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
Very elaborate.
All right, okay, that's great. So with your partner, we're going to have a brief discussion again. This time, we're going to reflect back on a not so good memory from recess. So some negative experience you had that was associated with recess. Okay?
So my example for you, sure, probably not be a painting, right? Okay.
Always remember that. Just face it and then just that that game just turned, yeah, felt really bad. When you knew I was hurt, but you know, you just don't know sometimes. Yeah, it turned out okay.
So that's the thing.
Like, no, you're the hard person to do it.
And at this time, we can have the other person share.
I didn't realize that.
But it's not. It was just like, and I was like,
Yeah.
And it was like, that was recess. And they would, and we thought it was funny. I mean, I was like, oh my God, but we would encourage Yeah. No one.
If you can hear my voice, clap once.
Stopped it.
If you hear my voice, clap twice. Okay, thank you. So anyone who would like to share about the not so good memories? So we have one group, and we have another group. This group. Okay. All right, please share.
Okay, well, she talked about when she played, was it dodgeball? Kickball. And it was all the boys, and so she was the only girl, but one kid had a really big problem with it. And he did something intentionally like that made her like hit her head on the concrete. So then she had to go get like a CAT scan and all this. And of course, as a child, I just got a CAT scan. It was traumatic for me. So I just know it was a real traumatic experience. And then I had like a group of girls that would like follow me around, like, why is your name Cheyenne? And I was like, I don't know. And because they were like, it should be spelled with an SH. And I was like, but it's not. So I even had to like tell my mom about it, because it was just day after day after day. And it was just right at recess, they would just follow me around the yard. And I was like, let it go. But they wouldn't.
Yeah, which unfortunately so often in many of our elementary schools, you have that exclusionary behavior, kind of this power play type of thing that's happening. And those are one of the areas that we really focus on. Our 4 core values are respect, inclusion, healthy play, and healthy community. So those are kind of the issues that we try to help resolve through play. Thank you for sharing, we appreciate that. Okay. The other group?
I think it was that group.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Aaliyah shared with me that her not so good experience was not being included during playtime.
Yes, and for kids, if you really think about that, that's an emotionally vulnerable time. And my personal opinion about school is that school should be enjoyable. If my daughter ever says to me, I don't want to go to school this morning, just think about that. You're talking about a 5 to 11-year-old saying, I don't want to go to school. You don't want to school to hang out with your friends, to have fun, to learn, to grow and develop. That's not what, school should not be that experience. So that's something that we really try to focus on, and we'll talk about how we do that through play. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it. So one last round of Mingo, Mingo, Mingo. What's the name of this game?
Mingo, mingo, mingo.
Okay, vámonos.
Mingo, mingo, mingo. 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 Mingo, mingo, mingo.
Cow. Gonna match up? All right. So this partner is going to be your booty bump partner. So that's how you said you can be your partner. So we're going to demonstrate booty bump, okay? So we're going to put our hands out to the side, on the other side there. So we're just going to like that. And we're going to come in, bump, hey! All right? All right, so when you see someone, that's going to be your booty bump partner. Not just your booty bump partner for today, but your booty bump partner for life. So while I have you with your new partner, I would like for you to take a moment to reflect on that caring, consistent adult that was present around that time of elementary school. Like, who was that caring, consistent adult that you remember, and why was it important? Why were they important in your life? Okay? Share.
Wait, we're gonna do the booty bump?
I'll let you go first.
Okay. I was ready for it. Alina.
You know, at that time, you know, she had a
special.
And that's what I was thinking.
That
She was
I
so
will
like,
always-
and she was
And it's really good. Like, she was actually-
I think my teacher is
you were
really
that
nice.
age.
It's really good team.
That's all we think.
And just a few more seconds to share.
Your turn.
Okay. So I had the same elementary school friends, but second grade.
She follows me every year. She would like look out. I'm like,
But you know, applications all like.
yeah.
And like.
And I thought I had to
It's
work
all about what you do. And it's just cool, like.
yeah, but I thought I had to.
Even the one working out that we did, I still have to. She still has to. Right now, I am.
Just jump right in.
I'm sort of
You knew
thirty.
you was that
And I was in third.
I'm a big energy person.
Okay, let's bring it back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So, 2 new groups. Who would like to share on this topic? Any 2 groups? I think I hear one. Number 2.
We'll go.
Okay, 2. All right.
Okay, so do you wanna?
Oh, my kindergarten teacher, I felt like she was there for me all of my elementary school years from kindergarten until 5th grade.
Yeah.
She always looked out for me and checked up on me. That was really cool.
Yeah, and I talked about my 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Horn, because she really carved out time for us to be creative. I was telling Dulce that we would create these skits, like pretty nonsensical, lame skits, but Mrs. Horn, after lunch, she would let us perform these skits in class and she would give us extra credit points. So,
Right.
you know, I could see that as possible waste of instructional time, you know, it was kind of, because they were pretty nonsensical, but she validated us in our creativity and allowed us to do that, so I really appreciated that.
Yeah, and those memories stay with you for the rest of your life,
For
right?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I talked about my 5th grade teacher, Mrs. Winkler, and I remember her because, like I mentioned to her, whenever, you know, somebody wasn't having such a good day or, you know, they just weren't feeling it, like she'd find a special way for me or for any other, you know, student to kind of look forward to the rest of the day and try to find a day to like brighten their day up a bit and just talk to them and, you know, make them feel like, let them know everything was gonna be okay. And that for me was like the biggest
Right.
reason why she was so special.
I'm gonna Facebook her and tell her that.
And
You know,
did you work-
Jessica was my 4th grade.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I taught at the same school at Payne. We discovered that like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
When she's
There you
like,
go.
I think you were my teacher. And I had pulled up a picture and I left the classroom a month in. That's why I didn't remember her to become a literacy coach. But I had a picture that had just showed my class and Jessica's like, that was me. And I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
my gosh.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I know.
Did you work with her?
Oh, well, I just had, my 3rd grade teacher, his name was Mr. Boats, and he was just cool. I mean, I had a really hard time with multiplication, and I got teased about it a little bit, and he just put me through it. It was just like so traumatic for me, math. And, he also like did a lot of like hands-on woodworking. So in 3rd grade, I made a trivet, and my mom still has it.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
I was 40 to 30, so
That is so
that was, I mean, we use it all the time, like it's still there. Yeah. It took forever. I remember like, he was like, send it some more. It was like, like, it took forever, but we still have it, so I don't know, he was really cool.
Well, thank you all for playing this game. What's the name of the game again?
Bingo.
Right, and in this game, we talked about some of the positive, some of the negative, and then those adults in our lives that really kind of impacted us and made an impression in our lives. So I'm going to move on. We're going to transition to our presentation. But before we do, if you can go ahead and give your partner a booty bump before returning to your seat.
If you care about education reform, you need to be paying attention to recess because that's where kids figure out how they fit in. That's where kids learn how to interact with one another in a way that helps establish who they're going to be as grown-ups. Playworks is a national nonprofit that I founded here in California that is making sure that people understand how incredibly powerful play and recess can be as a tool to really make classroom time effective and productive and safe and inclusive.
Go that side, go that side, go that side, build a castle, build a castle.
No, here, put those two together.
Our coaches are earnest, amazing young adults. We train them and send them into low-income urban public elementary schools. They transform the whole school, and they are rock stars.
A few years ago, we noticed a huge increase in children under stress, and we kept seeing more and more kids in the office that were really good students with a variety of things that were causing them to get into fights on the playground and just act in ways that we hadn't really seen with the intensity we'd seen. From the first day of school when we began Playworks, we went from hundreds of playground referrals a year that would interrupt instruction every single time to none.
Ready, strawberries.
We've just finished a 2-year randomized control trial. We saw that minimizing the conflict between being out at the schoolyard and recess and coming back in and being ready to learn, if you were just to monetize that part alone, we're looking at about 24 hours of recovered instructional time. That's about a 200% return on the cost of the program.
If a teacher's taking 10, 15 minutes of class time investigating fight or an altercation or there was bullying going on or something like that, you've just wasted a week to 2 weeks of instructional time that now we have back. I can't describe how profound an effect that's had on the culture of our school.
Schools pay $25,000 to $28,000 to have the program. Each city has their own executive director, and we fundraise the balance. Part of why we work so well is that they're going to invest in us being there. And that sense of ownership really changes their relationship to our staff person and the program itself. One of the key elements that weaves throughout the program is this junior coach program. There are sometimes kids who are natural leaders using their superpowers for good. Sometimes they're natural leaders who've been using their superpowers not so much for good, and we are redirecting them. It can be completely transformative in a kid's life. Play is not the opposite of work. The opposite of play is depression. When you take the time to build a really healthy culture of play, where the bullying is reduced, and you give kids a sense of ownership, then it fundamentally changes their attitudes about being at school.
So before we get to the challenge and do a quick review of kind of Playworks and point out a couple things in that video. So one, Playworks was founded in 1996. At that time it was Sports for Kids, and then later around 2009 became the name of Playworks. And really it was built on the premise that recess was an important time of the day. And through recess, you can achieve many other developmental goals. Social and emotional skills. It's more than just physical safety, it's about emotional safety and how that connects to the classroom. So, as I mentioned, we are in 23 regions across the country. Here in Southern California, our territory actually covers from the southern border to the high and low deserts, to the ocean, and to Bakersfield, San Luis Obispo. Right? So we do that through a variety of different programs and models. I'm not going to go into all the details of that, but really just to let you know that our primary focus is really to improve the health and well-being of children through play. There's a few things that I want to note in that video that maybe you observed. One is you saw adults engage with students, right? So one of the things I really want you to kind of understand when you look at that video and you see those adults on the playground, they're not leading. They're engaging students. They're modeling the positive behavior. And you saw some kids wearing purple shirts, the junior coaches. We really rely a lot on them because younger kids learn more from their peers than from any adult. They learn good behavior, they also learn bad behavior. And so we spend a lot of time working with those junior coaches for them to be on a playground where the younger students can see positive behavior being demonstrated and in practice. So that's really the focus. So sometimes people see like this amazing rock star coach on the playground and they're thinking they're leading everything. No, they're giving them the tools and the support and working with that recess team to build them up so they can create the environment. We think that, children are born, kind of learn how to play, but learning to play with others is a skill. And that's something that we work to really help children develop that skill, to play with others in a healthy way. Exactly, so it's those social skills, which often ties to emotional skills as well. Be in an environment where you not only feel physically safe, but you feel emotionally safe. You're willing to take chances, to engage in something new. And when you're in that supportive environment, that really helps. So those are just a few things that I wanted to point out. Oh, the other was, you mentioned the cost that was brought up in there, the $25,000. That number has changed since then. We are a fee-based program, so we partner with elementary schools. For our schools where more than 50% of the students qualify for free or reduced lunch, that is subsidized. The school paid half of the cost. We fundraise for the other. And the other, as you mentioned, was mentioned that it really started primarily on children going to schools in low-income communities, schools that didn't have as much resource. We've kind of grown beyond that with the recognition that every child deserves an opportunity to safe and healthy play every day, and that's independent of socioeconomic status. I can tell you examples of children who have very unhealthy experiences as it relates to recess in very affluent community that mirrors a lot of what the students are experiencing in other communities. Exactly. So we recognize that, and so it's about promoting healthy play and ensuring that every child has that opportunity. So that's really kind of our goal. To talk a little bit about kind of what are the challenges. So believe it or not, only 1/4 of children in the U.S. between the ages of 6 to 15 years of age get at least 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous activity. So in California, it's mandated that students have 40 minutes of recess. 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at lunch. So that's right there is below that 60, right? In some states, it's not even mandated. There was a shift to say, well, academics are really important. Recess is kind of a wasted time, totally missing the opportunity there. And so we hope to kind of change that and really have schools and districts invest more into recess, recognizing that recess is a laboratory for learning as well. Additionally, more than 3.2 million students are victims of bullying each year. We refer to bullying as any exclusionary behavior. Bullying is that exclusionary behavior that is repeated and consistent. But yeah, that is happening at elementary, middle, and high school, and unfortunately, we're seeing it happening more and more. Some of you shared stories about having that experience. The last point is that teachers really struggle to regain lost instructional time that sometimes happens just from that transition from the playground back to the classroom. So the students are coming from the playground, they're amped up, they're playing, or they may have a conflict on the playground that wasn't resolved, and they're taking that back to the classroom, and this teacher is spending 10, 15 minutes trying to get them back. So we really work to support elementary schools and teachers of how to make the appropriate transition where the students are returning to the classroom ready to learn.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Sure,
Can you give us like an idea about one method that you use to reduce this transition? Like, is there anything that you can show
Yes.
to us?
Can you talk a little bit about the transition from resource?
Absolutely. So what we do when we're working with the staff, or if it's the coach that's there every day, we create structures. So like one of the structures is when students come out to recess, and it just honestly it depends on what the school and the teachers are comfortable with, but we ask that the students come out and line up, and there is like a mini conversation, like an introduction to recess. So the coach or the playground supervisors, they say, okay, so who's ready to play? Like, we're ready to play. Awesome. All right, let's go over our group agreements. And you have the students say whatever the group agreements for the play area. It can be, at one of my schools, it's be kind, be fair, be safe, everyone plays, have fun. So they would go over those group agreements each and every day. And you would say, okay, well, let's see who's ready to play which line. Oh, Miss Rodriguez's class, your line is fantastic. Okay, I'm going to have you fly like a bird to the area that you'd like to play in. So you do something like that. So they're not stampeding out to the areas. Also, having the recess playground set up prior to recess so that students aren't running to the equipment area fighting over balls. And the junior coaches are really instrumental with that because they set up the recess playground. So you can lead the students over to the games, and if the junior coaches are working on their shift, they will help lead those games, giving more space for the yard supervisor to check in with them and kind of go around throughout the whole playground and support recess.
And can you briefly describe the transition back to?
Oh yeah, I didn't get to that, sorry. And then,
More important.
well, also, so then
To put them back.
creating structures at the end. So obviously different schools work just depends on what the school wants to do. One thing that I find effective, especially with the younger students, like 3rd grade and down or 2nd grade and down, is doing like a water whistle. So 5 minutes before recess ends, it's like a warning, like, okay, your playtime is coming to an end. Make sure you get water. Make sure you use the restroom. So just kind of a warning, so they do those things. And then when the bell rings, there's like some kind of freeze. So some schools, they get down, they take a knee. I like to take a knee because when you take a knee, then it brings the energy down. So you ask them to take a knee and wait for the whistle to line up. And they can walk to line or do some type of movement to line so that they're not running to line. So when they get in the line, the last thing is some type of cheer. So one of the cheers that I like is like this. It's like a milkshake song. So it's like, okay, oh, a milkshake. And we go loud, we scream like, ah, milkshake, woo! And then I'm like, it doesn't really matter. We can do it softer. And they're so into the song. So they're like, we can do it softer. Oh, a milkshake. And they're saying it, and it's like you can hear a pin drop on the playground. They're engaged because they're singing in the song. And I'm like, okay, it doesn't really matter. And so if the teachers are there at the appropriate time, then all they have to do is walk their students into class because they got all the energy out, brought it down, they're ready to go.
Yeah. I just made a connection, if I can share real quick, based on what you said about the water whistle, that's the strategy, right? So Playworks is in the school where my husband teaches, or he's a restorative justice advisor at Carver. And I'm like, that's why they're doing that, but they do it with music. So because I worked at Carver 2 years ago and I would do lunch supervision, and those of you, middle school, as we know, is probably one of the more challenging in terms of transitioning from outside to class time. Particularly at Carver, it was difficult. So they started playing music over the loudspeaker maybe 5 minutes before lunch ended, and so that music, and it would be a song that the students really liked. So that would be their transition. In the lunch area, we would say, okay, that's your 5-minute warning. That means you have to put away your trash, and then they would have to line up in the quad to be ready. And that way they were already kind of corralled where they needed to be. They were starting to calm down, and it was like, a cool way to connect them because it was music that they enjoyed. So I feel like that's a connection. That sounds like a water whistle strategy, right? Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that because, and by the way, we're going to leave time for additional questions. Okay. But I love the discussion piece, and I'm going to actually build upon that just briefly. Especially you mentioned Carver, because Carver is a middle school. Yeah. Typically, our partners are elementary schools, but there's an interesting story behind that. So one of our principals at, it was an elementary school in the Norwalk La Mirada School District, became the principal at Carver. Just so happened, because as Monique mentioned, many of our core coaches are AmeriCorps members. And as a responsibility of AmeriCorps, we have days of service. So we have 9/11, Make a Difference Day, and MLK Junior Day. So I was looking for a partner, and I happened to actually partner with an organization called The Mission Continues. And we were going to work together on a beautification project at Carver Middle School. While I was there, I came across this principal, was like, hey, how you doing? She was like, I've been trying to reach out to you all. And she's like, look, you got to do something for me. You got to help me out, right? So through our professional development services, we worked with her team. And her biggest thing was really to have the students during, it's not recess, it's called nutrition. Yeah. During that period of time, that they actually spend that time engaging in positive behaviors and being physically active. So that was her goal. So we worked with her team and trained them to be able to do this at a middle school level. So that was kind of that interesting connection where as an elementary school principal, she still saw the value that she wanted to carry that on to middle school. And she actually instituted her own junior coach program. I don't think they call it junior coach, they call it something else, but at the middle school. So it provided that leadership opportunity. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So we have launched on this really ambitious goal. It's our aim. It drives everything that we do. We hope to achieve it, but even if we don't achieve it, it forces us to be creative and innovative, just like that conversation you had with the middle school. So our aim is that for 3.5 million children in 7,000 elementary schools to experience safe and healthy play by December 2020. Quite ambitious goal, right? So, and then we have our own regional portion of that every day we're thinking more creatively, how do we scale our work? Because our goal is not for Playworks, a Playworks staff person to be in every single school. That's impossible. We can't do that. So we really look for opportunities to partner with elementary schools in creative ways, especially through professional development, where they can own it. And even our current school partners, it sounds really crazy to say this as a nonprofit, failure is if they continue to need us. That's failure for us. Success is that they are moving and transitioning to owning it themselves. We want to work ourselves out of business. That's our goal. Moving on quickly, the theory of change. So I'm going to just get here. So everything operates on the theory of change, and the theory of change is a comprehensive description and illustration of the how and the why of the desired change we want to see happen. And so this is it for us. So as you look down on this side here, those three arrows are the inputs. So everything that's inputting, and these are the outcomes we want to receive from it. So I'm not going to spend as much time on the Playworks services per se, but I want to talk about the caring, consistent adult that we mentioned earlier, how important that had an impact in your life, and strong school partnership. So those are two of the really most important inputs, because we know when we have a caring, consistent adult, it could be a principal, it could be a teacher, it could be whomever who's going to invest in recess as an opportunity for learning, and that they actually care about it, and that they're consistent. That is a very valuable asset. And the other is a strong school partnership. That school partnership with that caring, consistent adult, as well as Playworks in whatever way we're supporting. Because no matter, we know that it works. We have evidence to show that it works. But if we don't have a good partner, it's for naught. So those are the most important impacts. Those move into, and when you have that, the first output you're going to see is a high-functioning recess. A high-functioning recess is where students are not only playing, but they're developing pro-social skills while playing, and they have an opportunity to practice that. And there's safe play, so as I mentioned before, physically safe, emotionally safe, that's happening, and an organized, active playground. Key point, when I say organized, I don't mean structure. I mean there's an organization to the chaos that you see. So there's a variety of different games. We believe that students should have the power to opt in and out of games. In some districts, they have what's called zones. And what that means is that there's a class has basketball, and that's for the week. And all that you do is basketball for that week. We believe that robs students of a sense of empowerment to make good decisions. And so we really try to create an organized environment that supports their ability to do that. When you have a high-functioning recess, it then helps create kind of a great recess climate. An overall climate where students, again, feel safe. They're being active. They're taking risks in trying a new game that maybe they hadn't tried before because they feel supported and do that. There's a lot of high fives going around. If a student is unsuccessful, it's not you're out. It's good job, nice try. Try again. So that's when you start to create that positive recess climate. And when you have a positive recess climate, it begins to penetrate and impact and change and normalize the school climate in a way where it just becomes norm. To be kind, to be caring, to treat each other with respect, to have disagreements, but resolve them in a healthy way. So it's not conflict averse, it's recognizing that conflicts happen, but how do we come up with creative ways to resolve those conflicts on our own? We're going to play a game a little bit later that is built upon one of very simple conflict resolutions tool. We call it Rochambeau. It's rock, paper, scissors. That's not to resolve major disputes, but most of the disputes that are happening on the playground is you're out, no, you're out. It's my turn, no, it's my turn. It's very simple stuff that if not resolved carries over to the classroom. We say rock it out, rock, paper, scissors. There you go. That's simple too. So that's really kind of the principle of Playworks. As I mentioned, our mission is to improve the health and well-being of children. And also we're across 23 regions across the country, direct service and professional development. Our impact. I won't go over all of this, but simply play, it works, to help us all lead healthy lives. A little secret here. The kids, the easy part. It's the adults, right? So sometimes we're upfront, but in a way we're not. Really, when we come to the school, we're helping to work with the adults, not really the kids. They see us with the kids, but we're really working on the adults. Because if you think about it for a moment, when you're talking about, we have an expectation for kids to engage in pro-social behaviors, to be respectful. Well, who's modeling that for them? So if I'm in a school and the teachers are going at it, the adults are coming to the school and they're going at it with the teachers, what am I learning? Right? So I'm going to learn that. So we try to move away from that and create an environment where they are actually practices. One other side note, I recently had a teacher, it was in a separate workshop, and she was there at one of our partner schools, share with the group. She said, you know, nothing works until Playworks came to the school. And since then, everything's been great. So I said, I'm going to challenge you on that. Because I don't believe that that's true. I don't believe that Playworks was the solution to everything. And we began to talk about it. I said, is it possible that Playworks, by focusing on recess and providing an opportunity during recess for students to practice a lot of the interventions that are being taught in the classroom, that maybe that was it. Maybe we just provided a foundation for what was already being taught for kids to actually put that in practice. She said, you know, I think you're right. Yeah, and it is. So you may have heard programs like Second Step, a lot of social emotional learning programs. I know my daughter's school, they have Second Step, they have mindfulness, they have all these other things. But then again, if the recess environment is not connecting with that, and they're going straight from the classroom and engaging in a chaotic experience, then is that really going to stick? So it's about that repetition. Just some other, we talked about bullying, and there was, in the video it was mentioned that there was a study that was done, Mathematica, Stanford Mathematica did an evidence-based study on our coach program, and these were some of the results that was saw from that. So at Playworks schools compared to schools that did not have Playworks, they experienced a 43% reduction in bullying at the Playworks schools. This was also a separate study that was done about kind of the impacts of pro-social skills. 54% of students are more likely to earn a high school diploma, 2 times as likely to attain a college degree, and 46% more likely to have a full-time job by the age of 25. So we really talk about pro-social skills. Often that gets ignored a little bit. I like to say that those pro-social skills enable teachers it enables students to be receptive to the information that's being taught. It's a lot to add, and this is, for me, it's kind of like, this is a personal thing for me, because particularly like with our young boys, particularly our young minority boys, there's an expectation of behavior in the classroom in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. If their environment at home and in other areas is riddled with conflict, they're experiencing a lot of trauma in their lives, they're constantly in an emotional state of fight or flight. We are, as an adults, we know that when we're in that emotional state, it's hard for us to receive new information. So part of this is really creating an environment where they feel safe, and then they return to the classroom ready to receive that information. And this is really important because often, a lot of times, some kids get stigmatized in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade that directly impacts the rest of their academic career. I don't know if you know this, but after, I believe it's 3rd grade, the degree of intervention that's required increases exponentially. So it's really important to really focus on this time even from preschool to the 3rd grade, to really invest in these particular areas. So that's my spiel. We're going to save a little time for a few questions, but before we do, we're going to play a little game.
All right, cool. So we're gonna play, the game is Rochambeau Rockstar. What's the name of the game?
Rochambeau Rockstar.
So would you mind, you can stand, you can come this way. We're gonna kind of bring it in a little bit. Yep. All right, so this is how Rochambeau Rockstar works. So in a moment, not yet, we are all going to play Rochambeau with one another. And do you all know how to play Rochambeau, rock, paper, scissors? So we're just gonna go over it. We just do it like on Bo You Show. So you go Rochambeau. So scissors, if you have scissors and the other player has paper, then scissors will be more successful than paper. Scissors has paper. Rochambeau. Okay, awesome. You have paper, I have rock. Paper is more successful than rock. Rochambeau. I have paper, and it is more, oh, we just did that. It's more successful than rock, right? But scissors cut paper, so it's just like that kind of roundabout with the three. All right, awesome. So with Rochambeau Rockstar, this is the way it works. When we play Rochambeau Rockstar, the person that is successful when you play with one person, that person is still in it to win it to be the rock star. However, if you are least successful, then you are going to get behind the person you just played. You become their #1 fan. Okay. So where they go, you go. So I'm going to, can we play with it? Rochambeau. Rochambeau. All right, so I am now Roderick's #1 fan. So I am behind him and Roderick, 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 Roderick. And he goes on to play till we get down to the Rochambeau Rockstar. And when it's the Rochambeau, the last person left, we're just gonna cheer for them and just really like build that person up. Cool? Yeah. All right, awesome. Are we ready to play? All right, on our magic go word is vamonos, correct? All right, ready? Vamonos.
Okay, ready?
Remember,
Rochambeau.
okay.
Yeah.
Good job, nice one.
Thank you. Pause. I totally forgot that part. Okay. So if you have, there are 2 lines. Yep, you come behind. We're all the #1 fans. You join. All right. So Alina. Wait. No. Who is the person that? She is. Okay, so you still need to put. So you're behind her.
Who won between the 2 of you?
I had a rock, she had scissors.
Okay, so she goes behind you. Okay. And then you're still playing. You're still
and then after you sing, we're gonna.
So you can play Dulce right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't say cheer on.
Yes.
Go, my friend.
Ooh.
So you all gonna join her.
And then I want to pronounce it Marini.
Okay, so
Marini.
So now we have down to 2.
Marini. What is your name?
Okay, this time we're fine. Ready? Rochambeau.
Marini.
So that's the word.
Okay, so now where do I go?
We're gonna go behind
Yeah,
her.
okay.
That's it, right?
That's it. We're all Marinis. All right.
How you do it? Just focusing.
Okay.
Whatever you random, but
I'm not focusing.
If you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. So usually with, and sidebar, that is an attention getter. So anytime like you're dealing with younger students, even older students, you can make it up. You could say, when I move, you move. And they say just like that. Yep, exactly. Or you could, anything. You could say, class.
Yes.
Class.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Those things. You can have a seat for a second. I just want to explain the game. So that the name of the game was
Rochambeau
Rockstar. So with Rochambeau Rockstar, it's a really great game to just get everyone like really engaged, and I love it when it's like that shyer student, maybe like not, and that person is the person that gets their Rochambeau Rockstar. So the kids are all engaged. They're not even thinking about, oh, we don't really talk to that kid. They just play, right? And also with the younger students, sometimes I have them join hands so they don't leave their group. So I'm like, okay, join arms and walk with your person so you don't leave your #1 fans behind as you move in the space. All right, we're gonna play another game. The name of the game is Drop That Cookie, was the name of the game.
Drop that cookie.
And this is a tag game. And so tag usually makes administrators very nervous. I like to call it mindful touching. So when we do tag in Playworks, the kids usually play it anyway, even if you say no tag, they will play it. So we try to create a boundary, like a space where they can play it, and also really, really redirect them. So what I like to do is a 2-finger touch. And when we touch on the shoulders, arms, or back. Where do we touch?
Shoulders, arms, and back.
And I explain to the students we do 2 fingers, and so that we are really just aware. Some people don't like to be touched in a hard manner. We want to make sure that we're being safe with our friends and no one feels uncomfortable. So that physical and emotional safety. And so we're going to move in the space. We're not going to run. We're going to, we'll tiptoe in the space. You're moving the space. And the person that has the cookie will be the person that is avoiding. So will you be my example? So you can tiptoe in the space. She's going to tiptoe in the space. And so I don't have a cookie. I want a cookie. So I'm going to drop that cookie. But you can hand it to me. And I have the cookie. And now you can do 2 jumping jacks, or you can just put your hands up like that. Yep, 1, 2. And so I get away. And I'm tiptoeing. And now I have the cookie, and she becomes the tagger. Because she doesn't have a cookie. I have the cookie. Yep.
Can I suggest one modification?
Yeah.
Instead of jumping jacks?
Yes.
How about we do 2 positive affirmations?
Okay, perfect.
I'm great. I'm awesome. Whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Perfect.
We will make it easy for us to jump.
Yeah.
I can.
Okay, no worries. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say even move your arms, but I like that one even better.
Yeah.
All right, cool. But thank you for your.
Yeah.
Trying. All right, cool. So I'm going to. Cookie and.
I'm not giving it to anyone.
All right. Okay. And everyone's stand up, and we're just gonna work in this space, and we're gonna tiptoe in this space. Alrighty, and those of you that have a cookie can find space out in the front and just kind of maybe around, not around someone that does not have a cookie. All right, are we ready to play?
Oh, what are our boundaries?
We're staying in this space in between the chairs. Are we ready to play?
I have a question for
Yes.
clarification. So if I get someone's cookie, then I just continue the cycle and somebody's gonna try to get the cookie from me?
Exactly. When you lose the cookie, you're going to say 2 positive affirmations about yourself, giving the person the space time to move away. And then you don't have to try and get that cookie, you can get another cookie.
Okay.
So, but if she tapped me and I refuse to give it.
You have to follow the rules, and we're going to have to put you on the
that's what I want to
observation
understand.
desk.
See, this is what I want to
Okay.
understand as a child.
So as a child,
Follow the rules.
no, that's really great, because so usually what happens if a child isn't following the rules initially, I'll remind them, I'll say, okay, friend, remember we have to give up the cookie. That's how we play the game. And if, like it's the second time or the third time after, there's been verbal reminders, I'll say, okay, friend, I'm going to ask you, why don't you come over here? You can stand on the observation deck and you can watch the way we're playing so that you can understand how we're playing the game. And in a few moments, I'll invite you back to play the game the way we're playing. Okay? You're welcome. Oh, yeah.
Like, are you sure? I'm just joking.
All right, are you ready?
Yes.
All right, cool. Vamos.
I made you work for that.
Two positive affirmations. No, for you, 2 positive affirmations before you move in.
Oh, I have to do the way my son does it. I am victorious.
I'm resourceful.
Thank you.
Can't catch
Happy and calm.
I am victorious. I am strong.
Yes, to say
Again, you have a picture again?
If you hear my voice, clap once. Clap twice. All right, I'm sorry, because just for the sake of time, we'll make sure we respect everyone's time.
Sure.
That was just a small demonstration of kind of a game. Again, as you can see in that game, it's teaching like boundaries, personal boundaries, how to touch with playing games. As I think Monique did a good job explaining. A lot of times when we meet with principals for the very first time, they totally freak out when they say, oh, you're gonna have tag games or dodgeball. So dodgeball, by the way, if you go to a non-Playworks school, it's probably an 80% chance that it's played incorrectly. The inappropriate ball, those big handball balls, no, that's not what we use. We use very soft balls, right? So so it's about how you play the game, the rules, and the respect within a game. So any game can be played. You can have a seat, and then we're gonna, because of time.
Okay, I was just gonna have them do 2 high fives. I was gonna tell you to give 2 high fives, but you can just do it with your neighbor. Give your neighbor a high five. Say good game.
Good thing.
Good game.
Good game.
So at this point, and if we have time, if you want to, we can play kind of another game. But I just want to share with you some resources so that you don't leave here empty-handed. I also have some behind you on the table there. There's my business card. There's also a form where you can jot down your information if you ever want to go on a site visit, if you want to see the program in action. If you want additional information, just reach out to me. And I also have these little mini playbooks that you can take with you. So these are games that you can play with friends, family. What I like to do a lot of times is a big, family reunion or the holidays coming up.
Thank you so
Play
much.
a game. It kind of builds that sense of community. So these are some of the resources that's available. You can take a picture of this, that's fine. You can also reach out to me and I can send you the links. So the very first one under resources, that link takes you to a page where it's Playworks resources. And there you'll see at least the first, I believe, 4 items. It's all on the same page. It's our games library. So every game that we have, and there's like hundreds of them, you can find them in the game library. And there you can sort by age, by group size. You're able to play around with that. And then we also have 6 ways to improve social skills during recess. So how to do that. Many of the tips that are in there of these 6 ways to improve recess honestly can be used as well for the kindergarten class as well. 5 transitions to the classroom so kids are ready to learn. So we talked a little bit about transitions. Transitions not just from the playground to the classroom, but also transitions between different learning times during the classroom. So it's really all about how we transition from one activity to the next. Children, if you really think about it, as adults too, we really don't like a lot of surprises, right? So we like when it's predictable, we understand it, and we're transitioning. So if we're going from an activity where we're expending a lot of energy, we need to settle down if we're going to go into an activity that doesn't require as much energy.
This is good. Just to make a point, those of you who are taking CD7 or 8 or going to, that's a big part of the lesson plan process that I think sometimes students don't realize how important it is, the transition piece. So these are some great ideas that you can use in your lesson plans in CD7.
Right, to avoid like misbehave and all that,
Yeah.
Right, and tantrum.
It's one of the really probably most important elements of kind of what we do. 4 conflict resolution techniques. So obviously rock, paper, scissors is one of them. There's others, peace path, there's others. And we like to say it's not like one or, it's kind of all of them. Kind of them all working together. And then there's also a separate link on a different page, 12 games to teach social and emotional learning, and also kindergarten readiness games. So the kindergarten readiness games are part teaching those social and emotional skills to play, but they're also games that can be played to help reinforce certain learning, such as math, their numbers, and letters, and nouns, adjectives, difference between. There's a lot of creative things that could be done to include that into the curriculum. So you want to add?
Yes, I want to add one thing. When we're on the Playworks campuses, it's not like we're magical beings. It's just the kids really respond well to us, but a big piece of that is we listen. So when it's something that's going on, we listen and we're like, oh, okay, well, did you do this? Did you do that? Really information seeking. So as a teacher, sometimes because of those instructional minutes and your agenda for the day, it may be hard to do. I would suggest even creating like a conference time, like a little time. So if a student is having like a problem or something didn't go right, if you built that in, like, okay, if maybe I was wrong or something, you need to work it out, we could talk about it when the bell rings, I have 10 minutes each day or whatever, just so that you really build that rapport with your students.
Yeah, and it's really a lot about focusing on the behavior and not labeling the child with the behavior. You know, one of the things, and I tell you this personally, something I hear and I heard all my life when I was growing up, like there's me and my cousin, and at some point in life we took like different paths, and then we kind of had a conversation about that and kind of the pros and cons of sending certain messages through our language. I was the good kid. He was the bad kid. And the reality of it was really how we demonstrated certain behaviors that we considered to be acceptable. He began to believe he was the bad one, right? When really it was about he lacked certain tools to make good decisions. That's not his fault. That's a behavior. That's a deficit that he had, that if someone failed, he would be able to make different decisions. But he was labeled the bad, and the consequences of that. On the other side, me being labeled as the good one, I went around feeling the pressure that I had to behave a certain way. I had to perform a certain way. And as we all learn later in life, there are certain adults that ends up impacting them in their adult life. And understanding, no, it's not that I'm the good one, that I always have to be quote unquote good. It's that there's positive and negative behavior and there's consequences associated with that. So give me the tools as a child to be able to make healthy decisions. And that's really kind of what we focus on, to be able to do that through play. So I thank you all for allowing us to be here and play some games with you. We have a few minutes left, so if there's questions you have about anything that was covered or wasn't covered, we can do that.
I do have a question. How do you guys, when you guys go into a school and get the funding for the school, do you guys work with the current coaches? Because at my daughter's elementary school, they call themselves coaches also, the recess people. Do you work with them, or are they officially out of a job?
No. I am so glad you brought that up, because often when we work with principals, we require that we have a teacher meeting and a staff meeting for that exact reason. We have had situations in the past where people feel like, oh, they're here to take our job.
Yeah, of course.
It's the complete opposite. We want them to be successful so that there's no need for us. Right? The principal has recognized that we need support during recess. So Playworks, even though like in the coach model, there's someone that's there every day of the school year, they are now a team member. We're not an employee of the district. We're a guest on your campus.
That was the second question. So when the school has the unions, it doesn't conflict with?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
It's not all. Because we're not an employee. We're not replacing anyone. We are supplementing what they do, and we work through them.
Okay.
So a successful program by the end of the year, the Playworks coach is walking around. They're playing a few games. They're giving high fives.
Facilitating.
Not even.
Hopefully, the recess team is facilitating.
No, okay.
Or the junior coaches are facilitating. So in the beginning of the year, obviously, without any guidance, it doesn't look like that. So the coach is taking on a more active role, but by the end of the year, that coach should be able to step back. So it's like, we do, you do.
And what is the time, like what is the, I guess the turnover time? So like if you were interested in a school and the school was interested in you in 2018, like today, will you guys probably through paperwork and budgets and stuff in a year from now, 2 years from now, get to that school? Like what is the turnover?
So I'll try to break that down into some simple components.
Okay.
So there's a couple components to this. One is school interest. 2 is budget. 3 is commitment. Okay, so a principal expressed an interest, say right about now. So we do a lot of outreach around, it's kind of all year, but we really start to get into it around December or January. So just before budget. So principals can actually figure into their budget the ability to pay for it. In addition, that's through direct service. So professional development happens year round.
Okay.
So there's opportunities to work with the principal immediately through professional development. But they need to have those resources in their budgets, and we actually work with them. There's specific areas of funding that they actually can use, and principals will actually share with one another. So you have a principal over here that have Playworks, they'll say, hey, you can use this pot of money for this and that, whatever.
Yeah.
So they work together and they find a way to make it happen. So around March, April, we kind of know what we're going for the next year, because we have to budget ourselves for the next year. And then we enter in what's called a MOU, it's a Memorandum of Understanding, and a verbal commitment that they're going to be joining us the following year. And then eventually it goes before the district, they get approval, and so forth and so on.
Got it.
A lot of process, so the process is long.
It can be, it also can be very quick.
Okay.
Yeah, so it really depends on the district and individual school. Yeah.
It's not something that I can't do.
Yeah.
Was that again?
I said, it's not something I can't make happen.
Yeah, there you go.
No, well, I wouldn't say that.
You said you can't, it's not something that you can't make happen, right?
Yes, right, yeah.
Yeah, so she's saying it in affirmative.
Oh, you said it's something that you can make happen?
Basically.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood you.
Yeah. She was negative, she said, I can't not make it
Yes,
happen.
it's something that you
Yeah.
can make happen.
Yeah.
Whether if you're a staff at a school, you're a concerned teacher, a concerned parent, you introduce the information. That's how often it really starts.
Yeah.
A lot of times, yeah.
Yeah, I just, sorry to say, but I didn't hear about this
Mhm.
Playworks before.
Yeah.
How I can let other people know about it, because this is really like what, emotion comes
Yes.
first to build the whole child.
Right.
And a lot of them, they have that bullying thing,
Yeah.
especially middle school and high school. How we can spread the word, like,
Yeah, so there's,
so people can know about
you're
it.
becoming like my
because
favorite
this
person.
is-
No, all of you are great. But,
You chose your favorite already.
I mean, maybe you can, even for the free resources,
But no, so-
you're giving us free resources, even for me, for future teacher, I can use these.
yeah, so the best way is I left my card out there. You can reach out to me
Yes.
directly. I also have another card you can look at that has the different services. And I can provide you with resources to share.
Sure.
That's a big part of it is really kind of, our biggest referral is actually principal referrals. So principals referring and sharing about their experience, but others can will. They can share information. We recently also launched something called Recess Lab and Recess Checkup. So Recess Lab is access to kind of free resources to really look into recess, and there's a recess checkup. It's a very quick, brief, I think it's like 4 questions that deals with issues of safety, whatever, where a principal can actually go out to their recess and do a quick evaluation of recess to see what they have. We have had some schools who have taken a recess checkup and they pass. Great. We want to identify them and we want everyone to know about them. For those who may need additional support, they can contact us if they so choose, or they can also just avail themselves of the free resources through Recess Lab. So that's type of information. Social media. Facebook is Playworks Southern California.
SoCal.
Playworks SoCal. Social media, yeah, there's a lot of different ways, but definitely. Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.